Here he is, Coach Dick Bennett. It's an honor, Coach. Thank you for being here with us on Inside Wisconsin.
It's my pleasure, believe me.
My goodness, I'm here wearing my Badger sweatshirt, but you've got a lot going on in this state. Between Badgers, GB, Stevens Point, the numerous high schools, like you encapsulate a lot of Wisconsin sports history with you, including the Southwest shirt you're wearing right now.
Yeah, look at that.
Show the people, we're the mighty.
Yeah,
Trojan.
buddy.
Brave men are we. We'll never meet defeat. Sons of victory. The whole thing. I don't know if I can sing it all, but Coach, it's tremendous to have you. And I just want to know, first off, have you gotten any rest in retirement? Because you got kids out there coaching, and I feel like that could be way more stressful than anything you have to go through.
Well, that is. I have not been able to enjoy, for example, my son's games the way others have. It's difficult for me to watch them, but I'm very happy with. I'm happy when my kids are happy, and Tony's very happy in what he's doing, as was our daughter who coached, and our daughter who is still at Southwest teaching, watching her kids. So that makes grandparents very happy and parents.
Well, you made Wisconsin very happy, Coach, for a lot of years. There's a lot of kids that probably think back to their days with Coach Bennett, whether in high school or in college here at Wisconsin, Green Bay, Stevens Point. Do you have anything that sticks out to you specifically about our state? Because we know you're retired here with us now, too.
Yeah. I call Wisconsin my home. I grew up a trucker. John might know what that was. That's a Clintonville guy. After moving from Pittsburgh, PA, when I was 11, to Clintonville, Wisconsin, about 25 miles from Green Bay. And it didn't take me long to realize I've been more comfortable in blue collar situations, only because my father came out of the steel yards in Pittsburgh, and I was able to relate to much of what was going on around me in school with classmates. And I grew to love the state, and decided we would never move, even though I spent a few years out at Washington State, primarily to, get Tony a good chance, as he was my assistant and would eventually take over. But quickly we came back. Just love the state. Not crazy about the winters, but it is a basketball season. And I spent most of my years inside in the gym, so I was able to tolerate that. It's just, I'm a Badger, and I'll never be anything else.
First off, Trevor, the two greatest athletes that I know of in Stevens Point were before 1983, so you've never heard of them.
I heard of one for sure.
There's a great guy that played at GB on a couple of their really good D2 teams, which was Joe Mall.
Joe was from Clintonville, right?
And then I still think the greatest quarterback and baseball player that was ever there and was in the Royal system forever was a kid named Mike Jerschley. Mike's
absolutely
probably something now.
Mike's father was very dear to our family, Don.
Is he?
And Mike's three brothers, who were afflicted and have passed away, were always Doug, the oldest, was second oldest, was a manager for any camps that I ran, a statistician, and we remained close to the Jerschley family. And Mike is back there, and I've said Don, his father, was the greatest athlete in Clintonville history, and Mike is the second. And there's been some debate on that, but incredible athletes.
Yeah, Mike could have been a quarterback anywhere he wanted to be, and he got drafted, I don't know, 4th or 5th round. I remember it was with the Rangers, but back then that didn't happen very often. So as a kid, and you read the paper and you read the exploits of these people, and you just assumed when you finally saw them, they were going to be 6'11" and 300-pound heroes. And then you see them and you're like, wow, they're average size people, but they were fantastic. So I have my eye, I got a foot there in Clintonville when it comes to those things.
Yes.
I chose my profession. I'm wondering if you chose yours or if basketball chose you.
I did. I had wonderful coaches in high school. Carl Brugink was my last, but a man named Jerry Grunska was before him. Ironically, I was a better football and baseball player than basketball. And so I did play 4 years of small college football and baseball and basketball. I played all three of them. And I was a good football player and a good baseball player and a very mediocre basketball player. But I loved it because early on I realized it's the only sport I participated in where the whole could always be greater than the sum of the parts. And basketball required everybody to do everything. And the synergy that is required makes the difference. And so you could have 5 10s on the floor and amount to a 25 as a total. And you could have 5 5s on the floor, which is not recommended in recruiting, but you could end up with a 40 because of that synergy and the way you help one another, whether it be screens, helping on defense, making an extra pass, winning the X battle, the hustle factor. And I saw that early, and it influenced me so much that I decided that's what I want to do. And so I did it for 11 years, loved high school. Probably I was a better high school coach than I was college coach. I was not a great recruiter. I tended to recruit guys who were more like me, couldn't shoot the basketball. And my teams reflected that. We were not offensive juggernauts, that's for sure. But I did raise a very great shooter, help raise one, I should say, in Tony, who was probably the best shooter I've ever coached.
You mentioned earlier in that response, Coach, that you played 3 sports all 4 years at college, and assuming you did the same in high school. John and I were talking off air that just doesn't happen anymore, and it's a travesty. No. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it doesn't. Kids need to develop their abilities. If you play basketball, it's one of the reasons I couldn't shoot. I broke my arm playing football, and I just had a lot of injuries. I'm still paying for those. And so it was the thing to do then. I loved it. And it was a small college. It was Ripon College, but we were very good. Those were called golden years at Ripon because we won the title every year in everything. And I played with some marvelous basketball players who I thought were Division I players then, and I know they would have been now. And I played with a wonderful quarterback who was drafted by the St. Louis Football Cardinals. And I played every play offensively. And I remember one game every year I played both ways because St. Olaf had a very fast receiver and I covered him man to man. And so my speed was a factor, not my size, but I wouldn't trade those days for anything, but you cannot do it anymore. And I would not encourage guys to even try it.
See, and I think that so much of that is if you play all those just to develop all kinds of how you can be well-rounded. And I was at the SEC Outdoor Track Field Championships a few years ago in Alabama, and Nick Saban came by to watch one of his guys. And I said, "Oh, Coach, answer me this. If you want guys to be fast, every coach wants faster. Why instead of spring ball and give them to your strength and conditioning guy, send them out to the track team and let them run?" And he's like, "Well, because I don't know if you've ever watched these guys run, but they all run in a straight line." He goes, "And I need the guys whose hips are good and you can turn." And he goes, "I'd rather have them play baseball where they have to learn to track down, or I'd rather have them play basketball where they got to get side to side." And so I always think that if you just let your kid play all these things, whether you're seeing it or not, there's development that can help in whatever you finally decide to specialize in.
Yeah.
But if you do it too soon, that you kind of hurt that. So so you've coached all these games in high school. You've got 11 years going on there. How do we land at Stevens Point? Because I did read where it said you've never applied for a job.
That is true.
In basketball, which seems...
I did fly. My first years out, I applied for jobs and didn't get any. And a guy named Lloyd Nell from Marion, Wisconsin, a little town outside of Clintonville, rescued me. And from then on, I did not. I was always content to stay where I was. There's a biblical verse about, grow where you're planted. And I believed that. And so there's somebody that continued to come into my life and say, "Hey, look, we know you like to rebuild. We know you like to start from scratch, develop players, develop a system and a program. How about doing that at Stevens Point?" And the man, Bob Kruger, was the guy there. And then Don Harden was the guy at Green Bay. And then there were a couple of people regarding Madison. Madison was something I wanted to try. I believed always that Wisconsin could be rebuilt. And I thought it could be rebuilt with people from the Midwest. We did not have to recruit the same guys at Michigan or even Indiana. And I felt like in watching, they had followed a pattern of recruiting the same kinds of players. But I liked the tough Wisconsin guys. And Al McGuire at that time actually was a mentor. I took a class from him and I spoke to him on several occasions. And he left a legacy that is rarely recognized. Al McGuire taught tempo control. He taught accepting, putting players in roles, role playing. That really has impacted me because the ability to control tempo was what gave us a chance to succeed against the high flyers. And I might ask, Tony does the same thing, although he gets criticized a lot more for it because today's player isn't crazy about, extending a shot clock, although he does it as much with their defense as with their offense. But at any rate, Al McGuire did that, and that was the key to his success. And I felt like Wisconsin could do that. It took, and I only wanted to stay 5 years, and that's what I did. But I thought we could get it going in 5 years, and then others would pick it up, and they did. Mo Ryan, of course, most notably, and I'm so happy Greg Gard is enjoying the success he has. Once he gets past this fiasco, people will again latch on to what they're doing at Wisconsin. But there was always someone who said we need a program rebuilt, and the first question I asked is, can I do it my way? Because if you want me to uphold some kind of tradition in how we play the game, I'm not the guy. I'm really not the one you want. They said, no, we're that bad. We'll take anything we can get. So I always chose programs that were really down and I could do it my own way.
And you did. And you put a lot of those programs, if not all of them, back on the map. I mean, Stevens Point, Green Bay had its success and came into fruition when you were there. And, of course, Wisconsin to the Final Four. Is there a favorite team over the years, Coach, whether it was high school or in your college years, that is the team that you remember most?
Gosh, that'd be hard. I could pick one that achieves specialness, but I have to be honest with you, and I think any father will understand it. When you get the opportunity to share the ups and downs with your son, that will probably rank the one that you'll go toes up with. And I would have to say that Tony stayed to play with me. I think he was capable of playing perhaps above that level. But when he came, others came with him and enabled the Green Bay program to really take off. And so those, I guess I would have to say my favorite, it had as much pain as joy, was coaching teams where my son played, because I suffered as a father when it didn't go well or when he received criticism. And as John will tell you, Green Bay is a wonderful town, but it's a professional town. And if things don't go well, you hear about it. And those early years were a test of endurance. And thankfully, perseverance and endurance go together. But endurance is just staying with it and lasting. Perseverance is making changes as you go. And I was able to learn perseverance at Green Bay because we were really bad early. And I've even encouraged the staff there now to persevere because it's very difficult starting over.
Yeah.
You said you weren't a great recruiter or you didn't care for that. How hard was the Tony recruitment? Like, were there others in the fight that would have taken him?
There was a book written called Phoenix Rising. A man named Aaron Mitchell just released it, did a very nice job. Took him 5 years to do it. he called me, I think, with a year or two remaining to get some of my thoughts, but he had gone through everything, the archives. He'd watched all the tape, did a marvelous job with it. But one of the stories was Tony's recruitment, and he kind of wanted to see who was interested in him, and he kind of hung on, and I got very angry, and I laid a line on him, which was a total fabrication on my part. I said, look, if I can't get an answer by this time, I'm just going to have to fill that, because we had already gotten 4 scholarships filled with guys who assumed they were going to play with him, and he was holding off. But I think he was just playing mind games with me. And I said that. And so he held out longer and pushed me well beyond the date I had given him. And his mother knew he was going to commit, but he just had to play around with the old man a little bit. But he knew we were going to do it. He had seen how hard it was, even at Point, to get going, and then at Green Bay early, and he wanted to see it turn.
And
Trevor,
so
you held up the book, right? You just said,
yeah, this is it right here. Yeah, this is it. This is Phoenix Rising. I have the book here literally in front of me. We're actually going to give away 3 copies signed by the author, Aaron Mitchell, as part of this show, Coach. So thanks again for signing a copy for us. I got John's in my hand here that I'm sending to him. And of course, our producer, Craig Culbertson, is a Clintonville trucker himself. So he really appreciates it.
I noticed that's a thick book. So apparently rebuilding the program is not just a 2-day thing. Yeah.
Well, it touched on when Dave Buss was there, and then those after him, and then me, and then my dearest friend, Mike Heidemann, who was passed away, who was my longtime assistant. His year after I left was the best year in Green Bay history, record-wise. And so he took that program right after I left and even made it better. And so it went through particularly that year. I'm amazed at the job Aaron did. He was a fan. His parents were big fans, and he grew up a fan of Phoenix basketball. And I'm amazed at the research he did. He interviewed so many of the players and so on, and he did a wonderful job. And he's not an author. He works for Kohler Corporation, I believe.
Yeah, he's a super fan. And I know that, Dick, your relationship with him means a lot too. Aaron lost his father quite a few years ago, and is really, really grateful for the relationship that you built with him. More with Coach Bennett, Green Bay basketball. We'll get to the Wisconsin stuff, and of course it's March. We'll talk about that too. We're back in a minute. We are Inside Wisconsin with Dick Bennett.
Inside Wisconsin is brought to you by Baycare Clinic, Cobblestone Creek, the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, Mill Home Supper Club, Festival Foods, Capital Credit Union, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, American Family Insurance, Rolltech, and by Miller Lite.